My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 61, Advancing to Gold Tier. It's definitely not a loss to exchange 100 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs with a normal gold tier cultivation method, because gold tier cultivation methods are usually worth thousands of gold coins, and when it comes to dark elemental combat auras, the value is 10 times higher. Watson rubbed his chin, and his eyes revealed a brilliant light. It's not that I don't believe in your credibility, Miss Nightingale, but I'm not sure if I have the talent to cultivate a dark elemental combat aura. I hope you will let me see the cultivation manual that you've mentioned, and then I'll decide whether to accept your proposal. Very well. Nightingale thought carefully before she nodded in agreement. Watson's request was not excessive, it was in line with his cautious character. Furthermore, she had eaten many Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs in the past 2 days purely as a reward. She should let Watson see the cultivation technique that she was cultivating. After she made up her mind, Nightingale stretched her slender right hand outward. A ball of fiery black fog slowly emerged from the shadow that swayed behind her. It carried an old yellow book with a few mysterious symbols outlined in ancient words. She controlled the book to fly toward Watson. Nightingale said, "This is the cultivation technique that I practice. You only need to flip through the first half. Before you become a gold tier warrior, it's best not to go through the second half. This is my advice for you, just flip through the first half. If you're lucky, you'll only need a few days to obtain an Iron Tier Dark Elemental Combat Aura." Watson glanced at Nightingale in surprise. He did not expect her to hide her cultivation technique in the shadows. However, it seemed that her shadow moved like a living thing with enough space to hold items. That showed the magic of Nightingale's combat aura. When a warrior reached a high level, he would be similar to a mage in some areas. Watson believed that there were more magic places for him to explore. "I hope I have the talent to cultivate a dark elemental combat aura," Watson said. It did not matter if he did not, for the warrior cultivators, it was not difficult for them to cultivate. Even if they did not have the talent for combat aura, they could grasp its particular element as long as they worked hard. The only difference was their speed to achieve that. For example, those who had the talent to cultivate light elemental combat aura could obtain it in a day, and those without skill might need a month or even a year. That was why many guards gave up on training in light elemental combat aura even though they had spent so much time on it. It would only make them weaker if they trained so forcefully. Watson did not have such concern. He wanted to train in dark elemental combat aura not to become stronger but to complete the fusion for his combat aura as he had always done. He had used 4 types of combat aura to fuse the light elemental combat aura, and with the addition of the dark elemental combat aura, he would have gathered all kinds of combat aura. He did not know what that combination would produce. He opened the book in his hand with anticipation. On the first page, he saw many complicated black symbols. They were difficult to understand. He did not recognize them, but the corresponding meaning appeared in his mind. Bang! It was a soft sound. Watson's hand on the book did not move. A faint black flame emerged from the shadow and burned quietly. It made his shadow look as if it was alive and slightly distorted. Nightingale, who was next to him, casually put a peeled egg into her mouth and nodded discreetly. "This guy is quite talented in cultivating dark elemental combat aura. He has already contracted a faint hint of it in such a short time. I think he will become an Iron Tier Dark Elemental Warrior in a week. In less than a year, he will be able to upgrade it to Silver Tier. I heard that he is a Silver Tier Warrior, and he has the talent to master both light and dark elemental combat aura at the same time. Amazing!" Nightingale looked at Watson as if she was looking at a rising star. In her heart, she praised Count Sylvain for his foresight. No wonder he valued Black Moon Castle so much. It turned out that he had already foreseen the strength of its owner. As long as Watson grew up healthily, he would definitely dominate the border and become a person comparable to the border count. When she decided to pass on what had happened in the castle to the border count, a sudden change occurred. Watson, who had just mastered a trace of dark elemental combat aura, suddenly shut the book in his hand and closed his eyes. He frowned slightly in pain, and his eyebrows changed to a golden hue at the speed of light. His brown hair was also covered in a layer of flame that burned rapidly. Behind him, the shadow squirmed, and the black flame covered his legs and lower body with another layer of darkness. The shadow and the light formed a clear boundary. Master, you have failed to fuse with the light and dark elemental combat aura for the first time. Please choose to either give up or continue trying. If you decide to continue, it may significantly increase your strength, but it might also harm the world. The system notification echoed in his ears. Watson felt a tearing sensation from within his body as the corners of his mouth twitched. He had not expected that fusing with light and dark elemental combat aura would be so difficult. That was the first time he had failed to fuse something. He felt that the light and dark elements were even more opposing than the water and fire elements. It was like hope and destruction could not be mixed at all. A slight contact with them would cause a complete annihilation. It was like a volcano had erupted, and it caused Watson's flesh and blood to break. Continue trying. Watson clenched his teeth as he constricted a hint of dark combat aura again. The system said that the fusion of light and dark combat aura would cause harm to the world, but he did not believe it at all. He was only a silver-tier warrior. He was not even worthy of the border count's attention, let alone the world. The system must have wanted to scare him, but he did not care. If he had to harm the world to get stronger, then so be it. Second fusion failed. Continue. Third attempt failed. Failed. The system continued to repeat the sound of failure until Watson's eighth fusion. Then, finally, the echo of a successful notification rang in his ears. Congratulations, Master, on the successful fusion. You have created an element that does not belong to this world chaos. Because it is your first time creating an element that does not belong to this world, you have received an additional gift. You have obtained a world-class tool, the source of chaotic magic. Congratulations, Master, the combat aura in your body has been successfully converted into chaotic elements. Your strength has been raised to gold tier. So the fusion of light and darkness is chaos. This world does not have such an element. No wonder the system kept failing. To create an element that does not belong to this world is comparable to the gods from the myths. No, even the gods can't do it. Well, at least the Creator could do it. This system that has been bound to me is too powerful. Watson sighed. He had always used the fusion system as fusion magic. It seemed like the system was even more powerful than he had imagined. There were many secrets that waited for him to explore. The thought flashed through his mind, and the huge change that came with his body interrupted his thoughts. After Watson fused with the chaotic aura, a pair of flaming red wings appeared on his back. Those were phoenix wings, followed by a pair of holy wings that shone with dazzling radiance. Finally, a pair of dark wings that looked like bat wings appeared on his back. There were 3 pairs of wings, each was different and exuded a distinctive and powerful aura. Then, the 3 pairs of wings disappeared simultaneously and merged into 2 clusters of grey air currents. They looked like a god's pupils that overlooked the world. The moment those grey pupils appeared, the guards who had been training around Watson knelt, one after another. They dared to look at Watson. If they were to see the young master, even for a single moment, they would feel a piercing pain in their eyes. What happened? Nightingale had just picked up another rainbow phoenix chicken egg. Before she managed to put it in her mouth, the egg dropped and rolled on the ground. She opened her mouth wide, she ignored the egg. She just looked at Watson. She noticed an obscure grey pillar of light had appeared on Watson's body, then, it had shot straight toward the sky. Chapter 62, Change the World. The grey pillar of light was a dim glow that seemed to be hidden by the sunlight. It was difficult for ordinary people to distinguish it. Nightingale was a gold-tier elite. She could barely see it because she was close to it. What the hell is this? Nightingale stared at the grey light on Watson's body. When it flew into the sky, it vaguely formed an illusory symbol that was hollow and full of jagged lines. Her eyes stung when she looked at it, and she could not help but cry. She did not notice that there were two different figures under the illusory symbol. They were the sun, which represented light, and the moon, which represented darkness. Furthermore, other signs had appeared under the figure of the sun. They were symbols of earth, fire, water, wind, and others as well. Earth, fire, water, wind, light, and darkness were the 6 basic elements of the world. However, at that moment, a new element called chaos had emerged with them. The moment it appeared, it had merged with the world and spread to the surrounding area. In Black Moon Castle's farm, the golden flash retracted its 6 pairs of wings as it paced in front of the rainbow phoenix chicken. It wanted to display its supremacy. However, the rainbow phoenix chicken had ignored it. Back when Watson had not fused the pentacolor fragrant chicken, except for Emperor Cluck, the other hens had treated the golden flash with respect, and the chimera was already used to that. When the pentacolor fragrant chicken was fused, it had inherited Emperor Cluck's personality. The golden flash was unable to accept that, so it had worked hard to conquer that arrogant chicken. At that moment, an invisible wave came from outside. It changed the structure of the air, which caused the golden flash's body to tremble. Its widened golden pupils were a loss, and then fear appeared. His body grew larger until it became its true form, the 6-winged golden chimera with its 3 heads and python tail. It looked toward Watson's direction. At that moment, it sensed its creator's aura. The rainbow phoenix chicken, a descendant from an ancient divine beast's bloodline, the phoenix, was not much better. It also lowered its proud head. That aura was noble and ancient. Even if it were a real phoenix, it would have to show respect. The aura spread from Watson's body to the entire world. Ordinary people would only feel as if the temperature of the air they breathed had dropped. There was nothing unusual, but the stronger the person was, the more they would sense that fluctuation. In the fairy castle at the border, Sylvan stood in the pavilion as he reached out to grab the void. The air was lit with 6 basic elemental magic symbols: earth, fire, water, wind, light, and darkness. A dark grey illusory symbol of an eye had appeared in the middle of those symbols. Chaos, the 7th basic element, has appeared in the world. Who had such strength to change the world's composition by himself? Were they a diamond tier elite, or someone great from a particular profession, or even a god that fell from the sky? Sylvan made a bold guess, the corners of his lips curled into a bitter smile. He was a platinum tier elite, and he had mastered thousands of spells. Other than some lost spells that had been forgotten by history, there were also some high-level grand spells. There was nothing that he did not know. His obsession with magic stemmed from his noble, elegant, and to a certain extent, obsessive-compulsive disorder as an elf. I am certain that someone used a terrifying power to change the world. The person who created this new path is not far from here. Likely, he is also in the kingdom. It seems I should send a shadow guard to investigate this matter. As the strongest mage in the kingdom, I want to master the magic related to this element as soon as possible. The basic elements of the world were not fixed to earth, fire, water, wind, and darkness. Instead, they were more diverse. Sylvan had once investigated a ruin that contained records of a lost country from 1,000 years ago. Those documents unearthed in the ruin mentioned that the world had experienced at least 5 eras. When the world was born, the creator had conceived 22 basic magic elements. When that civilization was lost about 1,000 years ago, there were only 8 basic elements left in the world. They were earth, fire, water, wind, darkness, light, and poison. Those basic elements had originated from a certain substance in the center of the world known as the source of magic. A violent natural disaster or an attack comparable to the strength of a god could damage the source of magic and cause the world to lose a specific magical element permanently. The lost civilization from 1,000 years ago had fought for territory with 2 other civilizations. The aftermath of that battle was too intense, and Thunder and Poison's magical sources were damaged. It had resulted in a series of disasters that led to the destruction of all three ancient kingdoms. Since the source of magic could be destroyed, of course, it could also be repaired. Sylvain understood that point. He guessed that the chaotic element had once existed in the world due to self-cultivating mages. He only wanted to know the characteristics of the chaotic elements. I don't know. What is the power of the magic created from the chaos elements? Sylvain muttered to himself. He knew that some of the newly repaired sources of magic were not very strong, they were only at gold or platinum tier. In other words, those who practiced that magic would reach the limit when they attained the platinum tier. However, since there were too many competitors, they might not even reach the gold tier. After all, there were only so many resources. The source of magic that had been reborn would have taken millions of years to recover fully. Sylvain had reason to doubt the element's real power. However, when he saw the symbol of the chaotic elements above the sun and the moon, he thought it had looked like a god looking at the world. He dispelled the uneasiness in his heart, his eyes were filled with enthusiasm. At the Mage Guild headquarters in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, an old man with a floor-length beard and a pointy hat on his head laid in a room filled with stars. Suddenly, a star in the void lit up. It caused the old man to open his eyes and jumped. Someone had created a new element called chaos, using it as a support to change the world's composition. The old man reached out and pulled the shining star toward himself. A star wrapped in grey fog appeared in his hand. It looked like an ornament, but it also looked like the image of an ancient star on the ground. This element is ranked higher than the light and dark elements. Oh, my! Which mysterious ancient existence has awakened such a terrifying source of magical power? We have to inform all the mages in the kingdom about this. We have to control this new power. The old man threw the star with a flip of his hand. He lifted his foot, and a tall bronze door that sparkled with starlight appeared in front of him. Then, it disappeared with him. The ripples caused by Watson's body had spread throughout the Holy Dragon Kingdom and affected the entire continent and the surrounding ocean. No one knew how far the Holy Dragon Kingdom was from the ends of the world. Magma churned on the ground, surrounded by towering volcanoes that occasionally spewed scorching flames. Huge golden pupils flashed and disappeared beneath the cracks in the depths of the magma. Then, one could hear the roar of a giant dragon. The world has changed. I am the great Dragon King, Constantine, the king of bronze and fire that symbolizes destruction, and I shall be reborn. Meanwhile, in an endless, violent sea that was far from land, dark clouds converged and gathered lightning. The sea had risen 100 meters and condensed into a whirlpool. A fish-tailed beautiful woman with a golden trident in her hand and a triple crown on her head looked into the distance. Another source of magic that composes the world. Is this good or bad for our race? The leaders of all the races in the world, elites that surpassed the platinum tier, were nervous because of the changes they felt. They did not know that the person who did that was only a 10-year-old child, and he had done it accidentally. The boy, Watson, did not even know what he had affected. Chapter 63, Praise to Young Master Watson. The strange phenomenon in the sky lasted for a few minutes before it slowly dissipated. The grey fog behind Watson's back, which looked like eyes, had disappeared into the air too. The tearing feeling in his body subsided slowly, followed by a surging power that flowed like the sea. Watson clenched his fists. The place where his knuckles touched the air emitted a creaking sound as if it was crushing the air. I'm a gold tier warrior now. Watson sighed. Then, he looked around. Other than Nightingale, who remained surprised as she sat on the bench, the other guards knelt in front of him. They did not dare to breathe loudly, they did not even dare to look at him. Sure enough, the system had scared them. It said that the fusion of light and dark aura would cause harm to the world. It seemed like things were fine. The sky was still blue, and the grass on the ground was still green. The number of people around them did not change. Watson was relieved. He began to check his body. The light and dark elements in his body had turned into a grey ball of gas. The gas had gathered in Watson's lower abdomen. It surrounded a semi-transparent sphere that looked like a star. Watson remembered that the system said that he had fused with elements that did not belong to the world, and he had obtained a world-class item, the source of chaotic magic. What was the source of that magical power? What was that world-class item? When he thought of that, the corresponding knowledge suddenly appeared in his mind. The source of chaotic magic was a world-class item. The item that could make or break the world was called a world-class tool. It was a fabulous piece of equipment that was not inferior to the gods. Basic information: the chaotic element was the seventh element that made up the world. It had three characteristics: annihilation, obliteration, and distortion. Strength level: only at gold tier. It could be recovered by absorbing high-level items or beasts. It would grow on its own. Ability: could bestow others with the talent to learn chaotic magic or chaotic aura. The student would absorb power from the master. Then, after the student died, the power would return to the master's body. After he read it, Watson swallowed his saliva. I didn't expect this so-called world-class item to grow on its own. Does this mean it will become infinitely strong in the future? Unfortunately, the source of magic had just been born. It was still too weak. Of course, if he were to give it a lot of good things, it might be able to improve rather quickly. With his resources, he would be able to achieve that. The source of magic also had the ability to bestow talent to others. Since chaos was created when one combined the light and dark elements, it was definitely stronger than light and darkness. Watson was prepared to wait for the source of magic to replenish its energy. Then he would distribute its characteristics to his family and subordinates. The power of the magical source was not equal to Watson's strength, but it limited his power. For example, if Watson were at gold tier, then the source of magic would be platinum tier. Conversely, if the source of magic was gold tier, then Watson could not be platinum tier. Therefore, before he could distribute it, he would need to consider the matter carefully and choose the right person. After he inspected the magical source, Watson raised his head and lifted a finger. His finger released a wisp of faint, grey fog, turned into a thin sword, and destroyed a huge rock. That was right, it was destroyed. Normal combat aura could hack a rock into two pieces, and some stronger warrior could even ground the rock into powder. Watson was different. His chaos combat aura could obliterate and annihilate. When he touched the rock, its color had gradually diminished as if an eraser had erased it. When she saw that, Nightingale's lips trembled as she picked up the rainbow phoenix egg that had fallen onto the ground. She dusted it and tried to put it into his mouth, but it was as if the egg and her lips were misaligned. She was a gold tier elite, but her hands shook so much that she could not hold anything. What happened? Did Watson cause that phenomenon that shook the heavens and earth? It seems that I need to report this matter to the border count as soon as possible. Nightingale thought. She did not understand what the elemental symbols in the sky meant. She only knew that Watson's strength had increased by many times fold. He seemed to be at the same tier as her. After she stuffed the rainbow phoenix chicken egg into her mouth, Nightingale asked Watson carefully, "Did you advance just now?" "Yes, Miss Nightingale. I became a gold tier warrior by accident. It seems like the cultivation technique that you taught me is very valuable. I promise to give you 100 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs every day, effective from now." He has advanced. When Nightingale saw Watson scratching his head shyly, the egg in her hand dropped to the ground again. She did not reach down to pick it up. Young Master Watson has advanced. The guards looked at each other in disbelief and excitement. Young Master Watson is only 10 years old this year. It was already scary enough that he was a silver tier warrior, but now he has advanced. He is a 10-year-old gold tier warrior. Some of them sighed. They were almost 40 years old, and they were still only bronze tier warriors. Yet, their young master was already 2 tiers ahead of them. It was truly infuriating. Alan also snapped back to his senses. As the captain of the guards, he was the first person to connect with Watson. He knew that Watson was very powerful, and his mental resistance was even stronger. At that moment, he simply praised him. Praising young Master Watson is like praising the sun. There is no one else who has such talent in the entire Holy Dragon Kingdom. Even the current Kingdom Sword Saint is only a Diamond Tier elite. I think that young Master Watson will only need 5 years to surpass him. Therefore, please allow me to be your loyal and devout servant. From now on, you are the god in my heart. I will pay my respects to you after every meal. After Alan finished his sentences, he kowtowed 3 times in front of Watson. Many of the guards also reacted and praised Watson. Of course, they were not as exaggerated as Alan. Some even looked at the captain with anger, they thought that the guy was too good at flattery. It was only my luck. Plus, Miss Nightingale's teaching has been very useful. All of you must learn well from her. If you can break through to another tier, then you will be rewarded handsomely. Watson waved his hand. He was embarrassed by Alan's excessive actions. Miss Nightingale's teaching is great, indeed, but it is also because of young Master Watson's outstanding talent. The next time you bathe, young Master, please don't throw the water away. And don't throw away the food that you can't finish. You can give them all to me so I can get a little bit of your genius luck, young Master Watson. Alan said those shameless words seriously. Even the expressionless List's lips twitched as he took a few steps away from him. Watson felt a little helpless. He thought that he might have advanced too quickly. A 10-year-old silver tier warrior was quite acceptable, but his gold tier status would attract unwanted attention. However, those issues were quite trivial. It was mainly because he did not want the guards' adoration every time he advanced in the future. He did not want them to become little fanboys who coveted his leftovers and bath water. Chapter 64, Completion Not Guaranteed. Wilbur List Manor. Have you found the woman named Nightingale? Wilbur sat in the living room when he asked the 2 guards. Previously, there was a strange fluctuation in the sky, it was as if something had changed. He did not find anything weird, so he did not care about it. Since the border count sent him the news, he had asked the farmers to disperse, each of them had sent men to inquire about Nightingale. As soon as they had found the border count's subordinate, they would set up an ambush and wait for the bounty mage, who would arrive in 2 days. Master, we learned that Miss Nightingale is in Black Moon Castle. What? Miss Nightingale has snuck into Black Moon Castle? That was fast. Wilbur tapped his fingers with a gloomy face. Miss Nightingale was the border count's subordinate. Why would she be in Black Moon Castle? Did the border count want to build a relationship with Black Moon Castle? No, if that were the case, he would not send people to support them. Perhaps the count wanted Miss Nightingale to choose. Wilbur thought about that. As the owner of a manor, he was not a fool. He knew about the nobles' dirty water. Since the border count had sent Miss Nightingale long ago to Black Moon Castle, it was apparent that he wanted to recruit them. Nightingale was probably there to destroy them if they did not comply. That must have been the border count's plan. He would not be at a disadvantage no matter what happened. The border count can make a backup plan, but I don't have that luxury. Send someone to contact Miss Nightingale later. Be careful not to let anyone from Black Moon Castle find out. Forget it, I'll write her a letter. Just say that I'll prepare 1,000 gold coins as her reward. Wilbur looked troubled after he had written the letter. 1,000 coins was not a small amount for him, but he was willing to pay the price if he could destroy Black Moon Castle. The guards took the letter and said, "Yes, master." Then, they left the manor. Wilbur stood up and paced the floor. His gloomy face was covered with a layer of laughter. "Watson and Black Moon Castle, you're finished. No matter what the border count thinks, I will destroy you when I get Nightingale to my side. The count is hundreds of kilometers away, so he can't do anything about it." Wilbur's gloomy laughter echoed in the hall. Meanwhile, at Black Moon Castle's training field. Watson performed the teleportation technique for everyone. Teleportation was the symbol of a gold tier warrior. After he had advanced to the gold tier, he had to try it. At that moment, a faint, grey fog emerged from under his feet. It left clear footprints on the training field ground. Then he appeared about 10 meters away with a swoosh. Then, with another stomp, he appeared on the other side several meters away. His speed was so fast no one could catch him. Nightingale had mastered the dark elemental combat aura. Her speed was not swift, but she could turn herself into a shadow, which was quite strange. She could appear behind her enemy unpredictably. In terms of speed, she was not as fast as Watson. The chaotic elemental combat aura that Watson had mastered was stronger than the dark elemental combat aura. He did not touch anything when he teleported, but the huge rock in his trajectory had disappeared so mysteriously like a piece of paper that an eraser had wiped. The guards were stunned, they swallowed their saliva. Is that young Master Watson's current strength? He's too strong. I feel that this is beyond the scope of an ordinary gold tier warrior. I wonder who is more powerful? Is it young Master Watson or Miss Nightingale? Nightingale stared at the place where Watson had teleported and frowned deeply. She had taught him dark elemental combat aura, so she knew everything about it. She should have known that would happen. She felt that the combat aura in Watson's body was completely different from what she had taught him. Were there really geniuses in the world who not only could master what they learned but also innovate their skills? Well, don't just stand there and watch. I'm almost done with my training. It's your turn next. Watson wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned to walk toward Black Moon Castle. He was ready to let Wendy prepare a bath for him. As the chaotic elemental combat aura was relatively special, he was afraid that he would hurt other people when he teleported, so he told them to watch from the side. He had a general understanding of his own strength, so it was time for his subordinates to continue their training. As they watched Watson leave, everyone looked at him as if he were a monster in human skin. Their gazes at him were very strange. Someone exclaimed, "Young Master Watson's talent is too shocking. When can I become a gold tier warrior like him?" Someone else said, "I think I can become a gold tier warrior, but it's impossible for me to be like young Master Watson." Watson returned to the castle amidst the crowd's exclamations. After Wendy had prepared the bath for him, he laid in the spacious tub for a long time to get rid of his fatigue. After that, it was dinner time. Watson was very quiet at the dining table. Besides his family members who accompanied him daily, Alan, List, Wendy and Nightingale were also at the dining table. However, it was not a peaceful meal as everyone at the table continued to ask Watson about his advancement to the gold tier. "Watson, I heard you were lucky enough to fuse the light and dark combat aura and advance to gold tier." Vincent's eyes widened in disbelief. "Eldest brother, you don't have to be so surprised, I got lucky, that's all," Watson replied. Vincent had a strange look in his eyes, no one knew what was in his mind, so he did not say anything else about it. When he realized that he had managed to muddle through the conversation, Watson lowered his head and ate his rice. Then, Scarlett, who was chewing her food, looked at him with a strange look. "Are you sure that you have fused your light and dark combat aura to advance? Are you sure that fusing these two types of combat aura will allow one to advance in rank?" "I'm not sure. Most people would not be able to advance after they fused their combat aura. On the contrary, they might even be in danger. Perhaps he could do that easily because he had the system." Edward, his father, sat at the head of the table. He did not eat. Instead, he stared at Watson. "Watson, are you sure you've reached gold tier now? I've told you many times. Why don't you believe me?" Watson looked like he was about to break down. After dinner, his family still pestered him and asked him all sorts of questions. Nightingale was still with them until she heard a strange sound, her ears twitched. Nightingale hid in the shadows, she avoided Watson and the others before she gradually disappeared from the castle's blind spot. Outside the castle, a man dressed as a farmer looked into the compound sneakily. He hesitated as he thought about whether he should go in. Suddenly, someone patted his shoulder. "Who are you? What are you doing here? You are Miss Nightingale, aren't you? I'm Master Wilbur's man. He hopes that you can help us attack Black Moon Castle. He is willing to give you 1,000 gold coins. He also said that this is the Border Count's order." The farmer took a letter from his pocket. Wilbur had signed it. Nightingale took it and read it carefully. The corners of her lips curved into a mocking and disdainful smile. "Go back and tell your master that I've accepted his request, but I can't guarantee that I can complete it. Tell him to send the money as soon as possible in the next 2 days." If Nightingale had gone to Wilbur List Manor first, and if she had not eaten a Rainbow Phoenix chicken egg, or if Watson had not advanced to Gold Tier, then she might have made a different decision. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in the world. Chapter 65, The War Has Begun. "We're here. What a magnificent castle. Nindy, I remember you telling me that your home is somewhere near here." A green-haired girl asked the girl in front of her. The girl had an oval face with some baby fat. Her long chestnut-colored hair fell to her waist. She tied them with a thin metal ring. She had a pair of round blue eyes on her snow-white face. She stared at the enormous black castle nearby in a daze. "Well, my home is near here. It is within the range of the castle." "That's strange. Have I been away for so long that I remember wrongly? Maybe they have migrated and sold the land to the castle owner." Nindy glanced at the endless black wall and frowned. "It's my fault for being too busy all these years. I don't have much money, and I don't write home often." She did not remember any black walls or tall buildings in the shape of a crescent. Instead, there was only barren land, a 3-story wooden house, and a small chicken farm. Her full name was Nindy Gary. She was 18 years old and a water element Iron Tier mage. She had been tested for her talent in magic when she was very young. At that time, her parents were delighted. They sold most of their unused assets and spent a large sum of money to buy her a book, the Encyclopedia of Basic Magic. She had managed to become a mage apprentice with the knowledge she learned from the book. An apprentice referred to those who had started to learn magic, but they had not reached the Iron Tier yet. She became a water element Iron Tier mage when she was 12 years old. She was forced to leave her home because she could not develop her talent there. First, she went to Monty Town. She had hoped to find a powerful mage as a teacher. In the end, she did not achieve her wish. After that, she traveled around the Holy Dragon Kingdom. She tried to improve herself while she improved her knowledge. While she was on her journey, Nindy realized that her talent for magic was a good thing. Even though magic was the strongest of the 4 professions, it was also the most expensive to learn. When those powerful bronze or silver tier mages took disciples, it was not as she had imagined. They taught patiently and prepared exquisite staffs or magic books for their beloved disciples as welcome gifts. On the contrary, if they wanted someone as their master, the disciple had to prepare a tuition fee that might be a staff or 100 to 1,000 gold coins. After that, the master might only give the disciple a magic scroll. They would not know what to do with that. It was the same for mages who were born with powerful support behind them. They did not have to become a disciple, and they did not have to worry about not having enough resources. However, once they used the resources, they had to become a part of the family. They could not betray the family for the rest of their lives, or they would have a miserable ending. Once there was an heir to a minor noble family who was attracted to her beauty. He showed her kindness and promised her 1/3 of the family's magic resources if she were willing to marry him. However, the man was quite short, and he was pretty fat. Nindy considered his proposal very carefully before she rejected him. Then, she returned to Monty Town 3 months ago. Nindy decided to become a low-level mage in the Mage Guild. If she worked hard on missions, she might have a chance to advance her rank. She would head home when she became a bronze tier mage, but she did not expect that her first mission would allow her to return home. She also did not expect her home to be missing. Nindi, you should have some faith in your family. Perhaps they did not sell the land, maybe the Black Moon Castle had bought it. Perhaps your family is working with them, or maybe your sister has married the owner. Nothing is ever certain. When she heard that, Nindi snapped back to her senses. She had a strange look in her eyes. Index, I should remind you that I have 7 siblings, and 3 of them are girls. I am the eldest daughter, the second child in the family. My sisters are only 12 and 11, they are still too young to get married. Nindi did not think it was a good idea to be a servant or be a nobleman's concubine. Everyone should live independently. She would have lost her temper if Index were not her best friend in the Mages Guild. All right, we've arrived at our destination. Everyone, take a rest. Here is a water element bronze tier combined attack spell. You can pass it around later. This is your reward. Folsen looked at the Black Moon Castle. He took a water bottle and a piece of wholemeal bread from the small bag on his waist. He tore it gently, threw it into his mouth, and swallowed it with the water. As he did so, the small bag did not change in size. It was a magical item. The bag had ample space in it, and it could hold many things. A few mages nearby, including Nindi, looked at that scene with envy. They only had bread that was either dried or hard like a stone in their pockets. They started to eat it. Folsen stared at Black Moon Castle for a while, then, he gasped. He thought that his old friend, Zhang Guil, had exaggerated the situation in his letter, but he had been right. Black Moon Castle was an inexperienced force. They must have added the word castle to the name. He was shocked when he saw the scene. It was much more magnificent than he had imagined. I didn't expect Zhang Guil to deal with such a huge monster. It is no wonder he wanted me to bring 5 people with me on this mission, and he wants to pay them 100 gold coins each too. Black Moon Castle was like a giant beast that laid on the ground. It made Folsen uneasy. However, he suppressed that emotion. The stronger his opponent, the more generous his employer would be with his reward. Perhaps he could even raise the fee when he saw them next, maybe 120 or 150 gold coins for each mage. If the employer agreed to his request, he would give the other mages an additional 10 gold coins each. He wanted to show off his generosity. 2 hours later, Folsen and his team of mages met Wilbur and the other manor owners at the Wilbur List Manor. The owners had prepared a feast to welcome their arrival. Then, Folsen mentioned that he wanted a raise because Black Moon Castle was more powerful than expected. Sir Folsen, I appreciate your professionalism and ability as a mage. I approve of your request, and I will give each of you 140 gold coins as a reward. Unfortunately, that is all I can offer. If I have to pay for more, then I will be forced to reduce my manpower. Wilbur gave a pained answer to express his position. Thank you for your generosity, Master Wilbur. There is no time to lose. Let's set off now. Folsen understood the situation. He smiled in satisfaction. The 140 gold coins offered was within his expectation. Wilbur asked, "Are you sure you should go now? The feast hasn't officially started yet." "I'm sure." Folsen maintained his calm smile and waved his hand. A strange-eyed owl flew from the manor and landed on his shoulder. It's better to celebrate after the completion of the mission. Not only can we enjoy our spoils of war freely, but we can also trample on the bones of our enemies, raise our wine glasses, and drink until dawn. It's not like we have anything else to think about then. Lord Folsen, you're an admirable mage. Wilbur nodded, and at that moment, his tone was much more sincere. I'll get someone to inform Miss Nightingale. At the same time, I'll assemble our army now. We'll set off for Black Moon Castle in an hour. I shall announce that the war has begun. Chapter 66, Watson's Preparations. At the training field, Black Moon Castle. Watson stood on the barren stony ground, he held a wooden sword in his hand as he made some hacking motions. Bang! With a muffled sound, grey chaotic aura covered the wooden sword before it immediately erased it from existence. Watson smiled wryly. The chaotic aura was formed from light and dark auras. In terms of strength, it's 10 times stronger than the other two types of aura. However, it will shatter upon reaching my hand unless the weapon in my hand is silver tier or above. Iron tier and low tier weapons will shatter, bronze tier weapons are better, they can withstand 10 times more. Sometimes, strength could also be a disadvantage. Fortunately, the combat aura produced by Watson's fusion could be divided. The chaotic combat aura could be divided into light and dark properties, and light elements could be divided into 4 basic elements: earth, fire, water, and wind. Watson found it strange, light and dark elements were equal in combat aura, but they could not be separated like the light element. The 4 basic elements that made up the world had nothing to do with the dark attribute, it was as if the dark element was created outside the system. The dark elemental combat aura represented the power of mist, corrosion, and devour. Those 3 powers could block one's 5 senses, it would make it difficult for people to see things clearly. There was also a strong acid that stimulated the surface of objects and creatures. It would leave traces of dark erosion. If the object were a bronze longsword, it would become an iron tier weapon or scrap iron. The ability to devour was simple, just as Nightingale had shown. She controlled the shadow to swallow the object and use it as a storage bag. Now that I have mastered the gold tier dark elemental combat aura, I can make use of the dark elements to a certain extent. Watson extended his right hand. The shadow behind him squirmed, and a 3-meter-long wooden sword slowly rose from within it. He held it in his hand. He named that ability Shadow Space. It was only 3 square meters, and it could not store many things. As his strength increased, the storage space could also become larger. In addition to that ability, he also grasped the ability to turn his body into an illusion. He could use his dark elemental combat aura to transform parts of his flesh and blood into shadows. That ability was best used at night and in dark places. Combat aura was not magic, but a high-level practitioner's combat aura would have the characteristics of the world's basic elements. It had a mysterious color that was comparable to magic. In contrast to the dark elemental combat aura, the light elemental combat aura that Watson grasped also had 3 characteristics: flame, penetration, and purification. The first one was similar to the ability to turn his body into a shadow. It was the weapon of light and the flames of the sun. The weapon of light could use light to change weapons at will. As the name implied, the flames of the sun could distort light into flames during the day. It could purify everything. If he encountered an enemy during the day, Watson could use his light elemental combat aura against the enemy and borrow the power of the sun and the weapon of light. If it were at night, then he would use his dark elemental combat aura and transform into a shadow so that it would be difficult for others to guard against him. As for the chaotic combat aura, the destructive power was too great, so Watson decided not to use it unless it was necessary. Since the system has fused the chaotic elements, the source is with me. Other than cultivating this element's aura, can I also use its magic? However, if I want to use its magic, I must have a chant, a stable magic array, and an operational structure. I am certain that there isn't a single magic book in this world that can record chaotic magic. Perhaps I need to create it myself. Watson suddenly thought of that. He muttered to himself, not necessarily. Chaos is an element born from the fusion of light and dark elements. I only need to find light and dark elemental magic of the same level and fuse them to create chaotic magic. I am truly a genius. Unfortunately, light and dark magic is also rare in this world. As he held the wooden sword that rose from the shadow, Watson did not use his chaotic combat aura. He used his physical strength to hold it and hack away as he set his future training plans in his heart. Even though light and dark magic were hard to find, once he found them, he was confident that he would become the youngest and most powerful mage in the world. Watson, there aren't enough rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. Replenish them for me. I'm going out. There was a sound as the wind blew behind him. Watson did not turn his head. Instead, he held the wooden sword in his left hand and grabbed a soft petite hand to his right. When he turned around, Watson realized that the hand had belonged to Nightingale. She must have wanted to pat him on the shoulder, but she was surprised by his action. She opened her pink lips to speak, but she was frozen on the spot. Watson took his hand back and threw the wooden sword into the shadow space. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Miss Nightingale, where are you going? Are you going back to the fairy castle? Don't forget the promise that you've given me. You haven't promoted any of my guards yet. I'm not a man of my word. I'm going out to do something. I'll be back in a day. Half a day if I'm fast." Nightingale glanced at Watson. She forced herself to be calm and said, "This has something to do with you too. Yesterday, I received a request from the Wilbur List Manor and other manors. They want to spend 1,000 gold coins for me to destroy Black Moon Castle. I've made up my mind to refuse them today. Shouldn't you give me 200 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs as compensation?" Nightingale had wanted to ask Watson for 500 eggs. She had lived there for 2 days and knew that the Rainbow Phoenix chicken would lay 1,000 eggs every day. So, 500 eggs was not a lot, but she changed her mind when Watson grabbed her hand. Yesterday, she could still pat Watson on the shoulder. She did not expect that he would immediately adapt to such a powerful force after he had become a gold-tier warrior. What a monster! Let's do 100 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs. I don't have more than that to spare. Also, tell me about these manors. At least 150. Well, 80 then. All right, 100 then. Nightingale gritted her teeth and agreed. She reached out her hand and said, "Give me the eggs first." Watson spread his combat aura wings on his back and flew back to the castle. He brought a basket of boiled eggs to Nightingale from the kitchen. Nightingale looked at it before she said with satisfaction, "Watson, I have to remind you that this is a trial for you by the border count. You must defeat these farmers to become his subordinate. In addition to me, these people also invited a team of mages from Monty Town. The strongest one is a silver-tier mage. I can only guarantee that I won't intervene in this process, and I can't interfere with the others." The border count was really a troublesome person. Watson pursed his lips. The count wanted to test his strength. He wanted to see if Black Moon Castle was a powerful force that could protect its assets or a fat sheep with treasures but no fighting power. If it were the latter, he believed that the border count would swing his butcher's knife mercilessly. "That's all I have to say. Do take care of yourself. I sincerely hope that Black Moon Castle will not become a ruin in a day. So that I can still eat the delicious Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs," Nightingale instructed before she disappeared into the shadows. Watson stood in place for a moment. Then, suddenly, he infused his combat aura into his voice and opened his mouth to shout. "All Black Moon Castle guards, listen to my orders. Our enemy is coming to invade us. Now is the time to prove your worth. Anyone who kills an enemy will be rewarded with a Rainbow Phoenix egg. Anyone who kills 100 enemies will be rewarded with a piece of silver-tier equipment. If you can achieve the final victory, then the 3 people who kill the most enemies will receive the manor I've given you. This is my promise, and it will be effective forever." The surroundings were silent at first before thunderous cheers rang out. "We will obey young Master Watson's orders." The 30 Black Moon Knights on patrol came from all directions, their eyes burned with enthusiasm. Rich rewards would always bring brave men. Watson believed that with sufficient resources and specialized training, those guards would not be any weaker than 1,000 soldiers. It was time to test the results of Black Moon Castle's progress over the past few days. Chapter 67, An Intense Battle. Outside Black Moon Castle, Wilbur led more than 10 manor owners and 5,000 soldiers to look at the castle gate. Half of the 5,000 men were on horses. They were not iron-tier magical beasts but ordinary, tall horses. At that moment, they shook their necks and made loud, nasal noises. Every 10 people in their army had armor. The last 100 elites were in a complete set of armor and weapons. The others were only in regular clothes. Even though they looked like they were in an uneven formation, they still had a strong aura after all, they had more people. This is Black Moon Castle. A manor lord beside Wilbur's side. He had been talking about Black Moon Castle for the past few days, and that was the first time he had seen it in person. He realized that Black Moon Castle was even more magnificent than he had ever imagined. He felt a sense of awe. There were many people like him. The other manor lords had the same reaction when they saw Black Moon Castle for the first time. However, they were more excited than in awe. The most excited one was Wilbur. He looked at Nightingale beside him and the basket in Nightingale's hand, and his eyes burned. The basket in Nightingale's hand was full of rainbow phoenix chicken eggs, which proved that the rumor about the rainbow phoenix chicken in Black Moon Castle was accurate. "Miss Nightingale, where did you get the eggs?" Wilbur asked. If they were stolen, then he hoped that Nightingale would share them with him later. Under everyone's envious eyes, Nightingale picked up an egg from the basket casually and stuffed it into her mouth. She replied indifferently, "Of course, they were given to me by Watson." Watson had given them to her? As Hope swallowed his saliva, a strange look appeared on his face. It meant that Miss Nightingale had been in Black Moon Castle. Yes, why? Nightingale did not even look at him. "Since you were in the castle just now, why didn't you take the opportunity to kill Watson and the castle's master? If you had made your move, then we wouldn't need to dispatch our men. Instead, we'd be in the castle where we can enjoy fine wine and eggs." "I didn't think I needed to say it. Sorry, I forgot. I'll sneak into the castle later and assassinate him again." Nightingale's perfunctory response made the corners of Wilbur's lips twitch. He could see that Nightingale had no intention to deal with Watson at all. She was putting on a show, which made him very unhappy, but he had to suppress it. As long as Nightingale was not Watson's ally, then it was fine. They still had the advantage. Wilbur ignored Nightingale. He turned around and shouted at his men. "My companions, we are gathered today here because of a common goal, and that is to deal with the same enemy, Black Moon Castle. I believe that everyone has heard of what this castle has done in the past few months. Without the consent of their surrounding farms, they have expanded their land without permission. They took advantage of their wealth to openly rob the servants of other farms. They think nothing of us. Keeping this castle is a disaster. It's time to destroy it. Everyone, attack now. Kill anyone who dares to resist you." He did not give the castle a chance to prepare. Wilbur waved his hand, and the thousands of cavalrymen beside him rushed forward with a shout. "Kill, kill, kill! Charge! Break your way through the castle, take the rainbow phoenix chicken eggs, and snatch their high-quality defensive weapons." Thousands of people stepped forward at the same time, and it caused the earth to shake. A satisfied smile appeared on Wilbur's lips, and he focused his attention on the few mages beside him. "Elder Folson, I'll have to trouble you next." Even though Wilbur was confident that those 5,000 people could break their way through the castle walls, he could not guarantee that there would not be any damage. So, it was a job for Folson. Mages were great at large-scale attacks. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're satisfied." Folson had a calm smile on his face as he waved at the 5 mages beside him. "I've taught you the joint attack spell. How are you guys doing?" "Elder Folson, we have almost mastered it." "Very good. Now is the time to test the results of your learning." Folson patted the small bag on his waist, and a sky-blue magic staff flew out of it. Dense water elements surrounded it. He used the magic staff to draw a huge 5-pointed star array on the ground. Each of the 5 points was filled with water element symbols in the shape of waves. Under his guidance, the other 5 mages stood in 5 different directions of the 5-pointed star, and he was in the center. He raised his staff, and at the top of the magical stick, a sapphire the size of a fist emitted a dazzling light. Folsen muttered. Water elements that fill the world, please heed my call, I am Silvertear Mage Folsen. Condense them into a surging current and become a spear that purifies everything. Descend, Silvertear Magic Spear of the Great Waterfall. A huge spear appeared above the mages' heads. It was more than 10 meters long and looked like a hanging waterfall. It was surrounded by long snake-like patterns and emitted rustling sounds. The 5,000-strong troops had just rushed forward when they realized that such a huge spear had appeared above their head. They trembled in shock. They knew that if the spear were to fall, at least dozens of them would be killed on the spot. They sighed at the power of mages. It was not only them, but even Wilbur had only seen such a huge spell for the first time. He sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the large spear in the sky. Wilbur felt that it was not a loss to spend so much money on those mages. Not far away from him, Zangwil, who was also a farm owner, sighed. It seems that my old friend has become stronger again. At the same time, he revealed a relaxed smile. He knew that there was only one way for Black Moon Castle to be destroyed. Spear of the Great Waterfall, kill everything in front of you. Folsen waved his magic staff. The spear brought with it the power of the thunder. It hit Black Moon Castle's main gate like a small mountain that had fallen from the sky. The game and walls on both sides collapsed with a loud bang before it revealed a barren land. The ground was full of water-filled potholes. The Spear of the Great Waterfall was a Bronze Tier combined attack spell, but it had the power of a Gold Tier spell. Except for Folsen, the other 5 mages who had cast the spell had fallen onto the ground, they were exhausted. The so-called combined attack spell was to extract the strength of those who were not strong enough and combine it to cast a spell beyond their rank. As long as there were enough people, an Iron Tier spell could be used to destroy the world. The price was that the person who cast the magic would be weakened for a long time. Master Wilbur, we have broken through the gate. Folsen looked a little pale. That attack had consumed half of the magic elements in his body, but he still fared much better than the others. Wilbur nodded repeatedly. Well, as everyone can see, thanks to Elder Folsen's help, the gate is destroyed. Everyone, listen to my orders, attack with all your strength. Wilbur shouted excited as he led the charge. He pulled out a long sword from his waist and prepared to charge into the castle. Boom! A muffled thunder-like sound echoed from behind Black Moon Castle's collapsed walls. 30 men in Iron Tier armor and green embroidered cloaks rushed forward, they rode their own liger beasts. They moved in unison, they were like one body, a sharp knife that could pierce into their opponent's troops. The enemy troops were not evenly distributed. Their strongest soldier was a Bronze Tier warrior, and their weakest one was not even an Iron Tier warrior. Plus, they had not had any training. As a result, their fight with Black Moon Castle's elites was utter chaos. There were only 12 Black Moon Knights, but they were more imposing than 1,000 men. Each of them was covered with thick bronze armor that had a layer of combat aura. They were like iron-shelled turtles. When swords and sabers landed on their bodies from different directions, they were not hurt. One could only hear clanging sounds and see sparks from the impacts. When their enemies tired out, that was when they would reap their reward. In a short time, the Black Moon Knights had managed to crack their enemies' allied troops. Chapter 68, 4 Silvertear Warriors. Black Moon Castle. Watson and his family were in the hall. Scarlet sat in between him and his eldest brother, Vincent. His parents, Edward and Catherine, were also with them. Wendy, dressed in a maid's outfit, stood quietly behind Watson with a slightly worried expression on her face. They could hear the sounds of the intense battle outside the castle. I can't believe that these manor owners are jealous of Black Moon Castle. It's one thing for them to be jealous, but they had joined forces to attack us. They're really trying to bully us. Edward's fingers tapped the table impatiently. He looked furious. He had been in his room trying to make babies with his wife, Catherine. However, Watson had announced that their enemies were prepared to invade them. He was so frightened that he pulled his pants up and rushed out. "What are your thoughts?" Vincent had a serious look on his face as he thought about Edward's question. "Since they want to fight, then we'll fight. We can't let them bully us." "But I heard that there are more than 5,000 Allied forces on the farm," Edward said. Vincent hesitated for a moment, he closed his eyes and then opened them. His eyes looked firm as he said, "Whether they have 5,000 or 50,000 men, we'll still have to fight them. They're invading us because of their greed, not because of our mistakes. Even if we give them the castle and the Rainbow Phoenix chicken, they will want more. I don't think they will be satisfied. Humans were always like that, they had endless greed. Since we can't make them satisfied, then we'll beat them until they're afraid." Vincent's serious expression hid a heart full of fighting spirit. Edward nodded as he looked at Watson. "I've heard Vincent's thoughts. What about you? What do you think?" "My thoughts are the same as eldest brother's," Watson said with a smile. They were no longer the same Gary as they had been in the past, and the same could be said of Black Moon Castle. Nevertheless, they had strength and money, so why should they not defend themselves? "Since you have the same opinion, then it's settled. We shall not tolerate their offense against us, otherwise, they will keep coming for more. I believe in your strength and judgment, but you must be careful. Your safety is more important than anything. If we can't win, then we shall give them the castle. After all, this family will always have a future as long as we stay together." Edward tried to comfort them. His eyes lit up when he looked at Vincent and Watson, he was very proud. "Yes, father." Watson and Vincent stood up at the same time and walked out of the hall. Scarlet also took the longbow from her back. Her gaze was resolute as she followed them. "Eldest brother, you shall guard the castle entrance. Go with the Black Moon Iron Cavalry, they will protect you. Scarlet, go to the farm and release the Golden Flash. You can ride it and make the most of your archery skills. As for the Rainbow Phoenix chicken, let it stay in the farm for now." Watson left the castle with his siblings as he issued their missions with a solemn expression. The Rainbow Phoenix chicken had the strength of a silver-tier beast, and it could be used as a fighting force. However, it was also very valuable. Watson had spent almost 10,000 hens to fuse it. They would suffer a significant loss if it were injured in the battle. Vincent and Scarlet had no problems with Watson's tasks for them. There was only one problem. Vincent asked, "Watson, what about you?" Watson had sent the Black Moon Iron Cavalry to protect him, and he had also sent the Golden Flash to protect Scarlet. Who would defend Watson? Watson smiled. "Eldest brother, have you forgotten that I'm already a gold-tier warrior? Other than that, I'm also a silver-tier mage. I don't need anyone to protect me. What I want to do is very simple." Just now, the mage outside had used magic to break through our walls. Even though these walls were made of dark jade stones, they're not worth much. But it will take a lot of effort to repair them. Since he has the gut to attack us, then he must be prepared to bear my wrath. He wanted to use magic to deal with his enemy's magic. As Watson spoke, his blue eyes were filled with anger. From its usual calm surface of the sea, they had turned into roaring waves. Even Vincent, a silver-tier warrior, felt a chill down his spine when he felt the killing intent in his youngest brother's eyes. "Then let's divide it like this." Vincent did not argue, he knew time was of the essence. He only told Watson to be safe. Then, he turned around and left the castle. He had blended with the 30 guards from the Black Moon Iron Cavalry. Scarlet had run obediently toward the farm to get the Golden Flash. After his siblings had left, Watson spread the golden wings on his back and flew into the air where he could observe the battle. It was daytime, so the effect of his light elemental combat aura was the best for the situation. The castle gate had already been completely destroyed, with over 5,000 men fighting against 30 men from the Black Moon Iron Cavalry. The Black Moon Iron Cavalry had excellent equipment, and their strength was much more significant than their opponents. They could fight against 100 men at the same time. If any attack were to land on them, they would not be hurt at all. However, they had to face 5,000 men simultaneously. At that moment, those 30 men hacked and slashed with their swords. They managed to cut 3 or 4 men in one go, and they punched outward to blow their opponent's head into pieces. However, they were entangled by too many people who had appeared around them. Those people were envious of Black Moon Castle, and they had already lost their rationality. When Vincent joined the battle, the calm action immediately stirred into tidal waves. He was a Silver Tier warrior and had learned the light elemental combat aura from Watson. At that moment, 2 golden wings that were more than a meter long had spread open on his back, where it shone under the sunlight. His left hand held a bronze tier weapon that Watson had given him, the Windstorm Greatsword, while his right hand held the light elemental combat aura's inherent ability, the light weapon, which had transformed into a thin sword. His body was covered in a silver tier thorny vest. The barbs on it also had a dense light elemental combat aura. From his hair to the tips of his eyebrows, Vincent's entire body had turned golden. He was like a god as he flew across the sky and reaped his enemies' lives calmly. He waved his left hand gently, and his Windstorm Greatsword would bring forth a storm that would blow those on their way toward the castle. The light weapon in his right hand was even more terrifying. The light ray could stretch more than 10 meters, and it could cut anyone in its path neatly and with a burning smell. It's a Silver Tier warrior. Black Moon Castle's Silver Tier warriors have appeared. Quick, focus your fire on him. The Allied troops noticed Vincent's bravery. They began to organize the people around him to deal with him. They did not have a Silver Tier warrior amongst them, and they could not fly, so they could not hit Vincent with regular attacks. However, they could release their combat aura into the sky to wrap their weapons and throw them. For a moment, the colorful combat aura in the sky merged and whistled past Vincent. Then, the daggers and short spears that were mixed in the combat aura attacked Vincent. Vincent only raised his eyebrows at the attacks. He did not dodge them, and he also took the initiative to greet them. Bang! Bang! A series of chaotic sounds could be heard. Those men who had attacked Vincent fell onto the ground as their bodies twitched uncontrollably before their combat aura shattered. Watson was the one who remade Vincent's thorny vest. It was a Silver Tier defensive tool, and it could reflect attacks. So if those people were to attack him, it would mean that they were attacking themselves. Vincent flew into the air, and wherever he passed, the Allied forces fell. Be careful, young Master Vincent. We'll help you. The guards from Black Moon Castle were much more confident when they saw Vincent's strength. Alan and List shouted before they spread their combat aura wings and flew into the sky. When the Allied troops heard their voices, they raised their heads, and their eyes widened with disbelief. Young Master Vincent? Shouldn't it be young Master Watson? I heard that the Black Moon Castle young master is very talented. He is already a Silver Tier warrior at such a young age. I thought that it was him who flew into the sky just now. I thought that he looks a bit old, but it's not him. There are already 3 Silver Tier warriors in the sky, which means that including Watson, Black Moon Castle has at least 4 Silver Tier warriors. The Allied troops knew that they were mistaken about Black Moon Castle's real strength. They were stronger than they had imagined. Then, they fell into major confusion. Chapter 69, He was a Gold Tier warrior. They have 3 Silver Tier warriors. Wilbur gritted his teeth as he looked at the man in the sky. Finally, he stopped in the empty space half a kilometer away from Black Moon Castle. He was also on a big black horse. The animal was covered with heavy Iron Tier armor and saddle, and his large eyes flickered with unease. Wilbur was a little relieved. Fortunately, he was cautious and did not rush. He had also joined forces with the other manners and recruited more than 5,000 men. Furthermore, he had also asked Zangwill to invite 6 mages led by the Silver Tier mage, Folson. Otherwise, he would have been dead. I've never heard of so many Silver Tier warriors attached to the Black Moon Castle. These people must have consumed a large number of rainbow phoenix chicken eggs in the past 2 months to break through their levels. Wilbur's eyes narrowed as he pondered the issue. Amidst his fear, his heart gradually became fiery. He did not expect rainbow phoenix chicken to be more effective than he had imagined. If he could invade Black Moon Castle and obtain the rainbow phoenix chicken, he might get sufficient eggs to train his subordinates to become silver-tier warriors. When he thought about that, he was no longer afraid. Instead, he roared, "Don't fight those 3 silver-tier warriors, focus on the other guards and Black Moon Castle's other leaders." The thousands of soldiers were no longer flustered when they heard that order. They looked at the sky in fear. They gritted their teeth as they charged toward the castle. Other than Vincent, List, and Alan, the other Black Moon Iron Cavalry guards were held back by more than 2,000 people. They were separated from the other 3 as if they were stuck in a swamp and could not extricate themselves. The remaining 3,000 soldiers had already passed by them and were headed toward the castle. They were not fools. They knew they should capture the head of the snake. Just as Master Wilbur had said, Vincent and the other 2 men were fearless. There was no need for them to fight those warriors head-on. As long as they could capture Watson and the master of the castle, they would win the war. As they faced the torrent of thousands of people, Vincent and the other 2 men, who were flying in the sky, tried their best to stop them. As Vincent's golden combat aura wings flapped gently, dozens of long light spears descended from the sky and nailed even more people to the ground. List, who was beside him, also fluttered his combat aura wings, which had the patterns of plants and flowers that flowed onto his back, and the ground cracked as countless vines exploded outward to bind their enemies. As for Alan, he wielded the Guardian Sword, which was covered in dark blue water elemental combat aura. It turned into a surging river that pushed his opponents to the ground. However, too many people were in the allied troops, and the 3 were already tired. So they could only watch as more than 3,000 men rushed into the castle through the collapsed gate. When those allied troops entered the castle, they saw a wheat field that had been fenced. It was not a big field, perhaps only about 10 acres wide. There was crystal-like wheat planted in it, and they shone like gems. It did not seem as if they were grown for food, it was more like a work of art. The matured wheat attracted their attention. "Am I seeing things? Is this really wheat? It's my first time seeing crystal-like transparent wheat. I don't know what it feels like to eat it." The men clicked their tongues in wonder. They knew that Black Moon Castle was rich, but they did not expect its inhabitants to eat different food than the commoners. Some men approached the wheat field, they were prepared to pull some near-grown wheat from the field. Even though their manor lords told them to hand in any treasures they found, it did not mean they would not keep some hidden. They believed that their higher UPS would not be so strict with them. The crystal wheat from the farm had looked expensive. They only needed to pull 2 or 3 stalks to sell them. More than 100 men acted. Since they were close to the field, they raised their feet and were about to step in. They did not care whether the wheat was fully grown or not, nor did they have any intention of protecting the field. Watson, who had been observing the surroundings, no longer hovered in the sky. Instead, he controlled his combat aura wings and promptly landed in front of those men. "Great water elementals, listen to my call and grant me invincible soldiers." Silver magic water elemental warriors call. After Watson finished his chant, a dark cloud descended from the already gloomy sky. Thick and long water pillars fell from heaven and landed on the ground. They became 3-meter-tall warriors made of blue waves. They held long spears and shields in their hands, and there were 100 of them. Those water elemental warriors stood in front of the farm and lined up neatly. At the same time, they stabbed outward with their spears. Chi! Chi! One could hear it as the spears pierced through the men's flesh. Those men fell onto the ground like discarded wheat in front of the water elemental warriors. Their chests were stabbed, blood flowed and dyed the ground red. When the remaining men saw that, they stopped in their tracks. There were hints of respect in their expression. Watson stood in front of the 100 water elemental warriors, he looked like an emperor surrounded by his soldiers. He was only 10 years old, and his expression was solemn. His azure blue eyes contained the sea, and the pair of golden wings on his back sparkled. The pressure he gave them was even stronger than List, Alan, and Vincent combined. "Everyone, don't retreat. That is young Master Watson of Black Moon Castle. The battle will end once we capture him." Master Wilbur said that the person who can catch Watson would be rewarded with 1,000 gold coins and 100 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. "If we can't catch him, then we will also get some reward for killing him." The men from the Allied troops shouted with their might. Those people were Bronze Tier warriors under Wilder's leadership. They were also the generals in that army. They were in charge of conveying Wilbur's words to keep morale up. He mentioned 1,000 gold coins. Plus, 100 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. The men breathed heavily, they no longer retreated. Instead, they charged toward Watson. The Allied forces used their bodies to collide with the water elemental warriors. Fresh blood sprayed, and it dyed the sky blue water element into a bright red color. The warriors pierced through the chests of those men with their long spears. The shields in their hands were raised as well to block their enemies' attacks. Unfortunately, the Allied troops had too many men. Soon, the warriors were overwhelmed as more swords cut through their liquid bodies. Finally, they fell onto the ground and evaporated into white mist. The water elemental warriors' gigantic bodies, which were 3 meter tall, continued to shrink until it was 2 meter tall, then 1 meter tall. Watson's face gradually paled. The magic that he cast could only last for a few minutes when he summoned 100 warriors simultaneously. He could feel the magic elements in his body had dissipated quickly before the water dried. Then, he immediately shouted, "Everyone, put down your weapons. I can let your trespass go today if you can give me Wilbur, Zangwill, and the other manor owners. I will give each of you a rainbow phoenix chicken egg so that you'll have a chance to join the Black Moon Castle." He tried to incite the men from the Allied troops, but unfortunately, no one listened to him. Watson had promised everyone a rainbow phoenix egg, but Wilbur had promised that the person who captured Watson would get 100 eggs. All the men believed that they would be the person to catch Watson, and they would get 1,000 gold coins and 100 eggs. "Everyone, don't listen to him. He's lying to us," a Bronze Tier warrior shouted. "It seems like you don't intend to give up. Unfortunately, you've made the wrong choice." Watson's expression turned cold. He raised his hand and removed the 100 water elemental warriors. Then he retracted his light elemental combat aura wings. 2 gray, eye-like streams of air appeared behind him. He teleported before he appeared dozens of meters away, and his right hand held the neck of a general. That general was the Bronze Tier elite who had shouted the loudest just moments ago. At that moment, the general's face was filled with fear as Watson kept his grip on the man. He was like a chicken that awaited his fate to be slaughtered. He struggled violently, but he was unable to break free. He could not even make a sound. The grey streams of air whirled toward his muscular body. Then, he turned into a piece of meat and fell to the ground. Teleportation. He had killed the Bronze Tier warrior instantly. The men in the Allied troops were filled with fear as they shuddered. They had discovered that Watson was not a Silver Tier warrior but a Gold rank warrior. Chapter 70, Meat Grinder. Nindi looked at the Black Moon Castle's gate that had been destroyed. She also saw a few Bronze Tier warriors lead the soldiers as they fought against the Black Moon Iron Cavalry. Her face was pale, so she meditated to try to recover her body's magical power. She stared at the sky blankly. Why does that Silver Tier warrior in the sky look so much like my eldest brother, Vincent? Was Indix right? Did Black Moon Castle purchase our land, and my brother has become their servant? Nindi murmured. Soon, she realized that something was wrong. That was because she saw her youngest brother, Watson, standing in the wheat field not far from Black Moon Castle. He guarded the castle behind him as he summoned magical warriors to fight against the other manor's allied troops. Even though the 100 water elemental warriors had only survived for a few minutes, they had killed more than 500 people. Their armor and weapons were scattered all over the ground. Human flesh and horse meat were mixed together. After the water elemental warriors had disappeared, Watson teleported in front of the allied troops, and chaos followed. Wherever he passed by, his chaotic combat aura would shatter several bodies. Even the men's aura could do nothing. It was like paper, vulnerable to a single blow. It did not matter if those men were bronze tier warriors or iron tier elite or ordinary men, the outcome was the same: death. The blood lingered in the wheat field and dyed the crystal wheat red. Nindy was doubtful if it had all been real. It was not impossible for Vincent to be a silver tier warrior. He was already training his combat aura when she left home. He must have had some fruitful years to have broken through to the silver tier. However, it was different for Watson. He had only been 4 years old when she left home. Watson had neither tested his talent as a mage nor trained his combat aura. How could he become a gold tier warrior and a silver tier water elemental mage after a few short years? He was even more outstanding than Vincent. If the Gary family had become Black Moon Castle's servants, then its master must have given her brothers gifts that led to their power surge. It meant that the master of the caster was even more powerful. However, the battle had progressed to a climax, and they had not seen Black Moon Castle's master. So there was only one possibility. Black Moon Castle had no master other than the Gary family. They were the ones who had built the castle. What happened to my home while I was away? How could they build such a magnificent castle? I didn't even know anything about this, and I have followed Elder Folson to attack my own home. What should I do if Black Moon Castle is destroyed? Nindy's voice became hoarse. She felt fear and shame in her heart. Indix stood beside her. She was also a member of the Mage Guild. She looked at the bloody battle, and her pretty face turned pale. Didn't Elder Folson say that this is a simple mission? How did it turn out like this? As a noble mage, Indix had participated in missions to kill magical beasts. She had seen beasts torn apart by magic, but those were only creatures. They were different from humans. She had seen a man dismembered in front of her, his chest was pierced, and he had fallen into a pool of blood with a hideous expression on his face. Indix felt her stomach churned. The 3 male mages, who were not far away, could not stand such a scene either. They supported the person next to them as they bent down to reg. Indix, this is the first time you have seen such an environment, so you are not used to it. You just need to experience it a few more times. I'm not lying to you. This is a simple mission, indeed. The Manors have gathered 5,000 men, so it shouldn't be too difficult for me to break through this place. I didn't expect 3 silver tier warriors here, as well as a gold tier warrior who has mastered magic. It looks like I'll have to ask Master Wilbur to pay more later. Folson comforted her as his gaze fell on Watson with great interest. He was very impressed with Watson, not because of the unknown type of combat aura that surrounded his body, but the water elemental warrior summoning spell he had cast. Judging from its strength, this spell should be silver tier, and it should be considered as one of the stronger silver tier spells. I didn't expect this kid to be a water elemental mage. It's a pity that he had met me. I'll capture him later, and I'll interrogate him to get this silver tier spell from him. Folson had made up his mind. Silver tier magic scrolls were worth thousands of gold coins. So if he could interrogate Watson about the contents of the spell, it would be equivalent to saving a huge sum of money. In addition, Folson planned to ask Wilbur to raise their fees, so he would have to pay the mages at least 200 gold coins each. That was the reward of 1,000 gold coins. Folson sighed. He had been right to take that mission. The harvest was enough to increase his strength by a few levels and shorten the time he needed to become a gold tier mage. As for the bloody scene on the battlefield, Folson did not feel anything when he saw it. It was the nature of the world: the strong would always prey on the weak. When he was a bounty hunter, his targets were not only magical beasts but humans too. He had long trained to have a heart of stone. Elder Folsen, why don't we just give up this mission? I can't stand this slaughter. I think I'll have nightmares at night. Why are these two groups fighting so hard? What kind of hatred do they have that can't be resolved? Did Black Moon Castle do something outrageous? Indix asked weakly. She did not want to participate in the next battle for her own safety. A battle was like a meat grinder, she would only become minced meat if she joined the war. Black Moon Castle didn't do anything wrong. If they did, then it's because they were too rich and expanded too fast, and that violated the interests of the other manors. They killed so many people because their interests were violated. I know, it's the fault of the other manors. Indix nodded. No. Folsen looked at the battlefield silently. You are still too young. The others were not wrong as well. Then who was wrong? Indix was at a loss. No one was wrong, this is war. Since ancient times, wars do seek not justice but benefits. And that is the truth. Folsen's voice was cold as he said, rest to recover your magic power. We may need you guys for the next battle. So put away those fearless sympathies. What we need to do is to satisfy our employer's request. Then, when both sides have almost exhausted their men, it will be my turn to take action. He held half a gold tier magic scroll in his hand. After a few days of research, he had used some methods and combinations from the magic scroll. After he had exhausted enough resources, he could barely use his magic. Even though he did not master everything, it was enough to destroy a castle. That was his biggest trump card. Ordinary gold tier magic could cover an area of several kilometers. Even without those 5,000 men, he could still destroy Black Moon Castle by himself and wait for his fees. It was a habit he had developed when he became a bounty hunter. Wilbur stood not far from the mages, and he saw his troops devoured. His heart bled. He had brought more than 5,000 men with him, but only half of them were left. The Black Moon Iron Cavalry had killed more than 1,000 men. So many people had died, and their pension would cost a lot of money. Miss Nightingale, Watson is already a gold tier warrior. Why didn't you tell me that? Didn't the border count send you to help us? He could not help it, his eyes twitched as he questioned Nightingale. He could accept the appearance of those 3 silver tier warriors, but he could not tolerate the fact that Watson was already a gold tier warrior. If he had known that, he would have brought more men. Nightingale crossed her legs as she sat on a huge rock. She would take out a rainbow phoenix chicken egg from the basket, peel it, and put it into her mouth from time to time. You didn't ask. Oh, by the way, please don't blame me for not telling you. Besides Watson, there's also a gold tier magical beast in Black Moon Castle. You should have known this long ago, right? The muscles on Wilbur's face twitched. Roar. As soon as she finished speaking, a heavy roar came from inside Black Moon Castle. A huge magical beast about 10 meters long with 6 wings appeared, and it carried Watson's 7th sister, Scarlet, on its back. 3 giant heads roared in turn as distorted flames and rock spears that covered the ground emerged. That attack immediately killed 200 men from the Allied troops. Wilbur's heart skipped a beat. If that were to continue, they would be defeated.